Babylon is here, so let's continue our in-depth look at the newest servants. Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with another servant spotlight, this time for the other bride servant, Caster Gil. We'll be examining his stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize them effectively, and an overall grade comparing him to how he stacks up to the other 4-star servants. Now, onto Caster Gil's stats. Caster Gil has a max HP of 12,005, which is above average for a 4-star caster and very high overall compared to the other 4-star servants, but his max attack of 8,460 is below average for a 4-star caster, and with the 0.9 times caster modifier, his effective attack drops to even lower at 7,614, which is very low when compared to the attack stat of every other 4-star servant. Taking a look at his skills, his first skill is King's Return rank A, which increases the critical star drop rate of the whole team for 3 turns between 50 and 100% depending on level. His second skill is Charisma rank A+, which increases the attack of all allies for 3 turns between 10.5 and 21% depending on level. And finally, his last skill is Sovereign of Magical Staff rank EX, which increases the arch card effectiveness and debuff success rate of all allies for 3 turns between 20 and 30%, both depending on level. Moving on to his passives, he has Item Construction Fake, rank A, which increases debuff success rate by 10%. He also has Territory Creation rank A, which increases his arch card effectiveness by 10%, and finally Divinity rank B, which applies damage plus 175 to all his attacks. Moving on to his deck and Noble Phantasm, Caster Gil has an Arts deck with Quick Arts Buster and an Arts Noble Phantasm. His Noble Phantasm, Malan Mudinger, deals heavy damage to all enemies with between a 450 and 750% damage modifier depending on level. It also decreases enemy defense for 3 turns between 20 and 40% depending on overcharge, and increases the defense of all allies for 3 turns by 20%. Taking a closer look at his deck, we see his quick card hits twice, his arch card hits 5 times, his buster hits 6 times, and his extra attack hits 5 times. He has an NP gain rate of 0.32% and a star rate of 10.9%. This translates into just average Noble Phantasm gain despite his heavy arch deck because of that low NP gain rate, and he does have low star generating due to only having 1 quick card. Gilgamesh has made his debut as a 4-star, and he couldn't be more different from his 5-star counterpart. Rather than a full-on offensive buster powerhouse that hogs the spotlight, Caster Gil is actually a wall-to-wall art support that is there to help his teammates shine. Caster Gil doesn't sport very good stats aside from his high HP. His attack is abysmal, his star generating is lacking, and despite being an arts caster with a full arts deck, his Noble Phantasm gain is just average. However, where Gil does excel in spades is with his incredible skill set. His first skill, King's Return, gives a tremendous 100% crit star drop rate buff to all allies for 3 turns. And as far as crit star drop buffing skills go, this one is unprecedented. Hardly any servant has a 100% buff to their star drop rate, and those that do can either only target themselves or a single ally, and it usually only lasts for 1 turn. Because this skill targets your whole party for 3 turns, it can single-handedly turn a team of subpar star generators into one that can produce dozens of stars every turn while this skill is active, which provides arts crit teams in particular with something they desperately need: consistency. Aside from transforming your team into a well-oiled crit engine, Gil also packs a very strong arts buff in Sovereign of Magical Staff. This is another team-wide buff that grants both a strong arts buff and a strong buff to your debuff success rate for the whole team. This skill is even better than it looks because it dramatically improves not only the arts damage of your team, but more importantly the NP gain of your team, while also enabling stuns, charms, and all other forms of debuffs to hit a lot more often. And because most arch servants have debuffs tied to their Noble Phantasm, this skill can not only help them spam their Noble Phantasm, but also consistently land those waiver stuns or Shuten charms. And finally, Caster Gil also has the same old charisma as his archer version, and while it might not be as exciting as his other skills, never underestimate charisma. This is Gil's most consistent skill, and a 21% straight damage buff to the whole team on a short cooldown goes a long way. It also stacks multiplicatively with your arts buff, so your team's arts cards and noble phantasms will be significantly buffed and they will hurt a lot. Skill priority for Caster Gil depends on whether you're going for a full-on arts crit team or a standard arts team. For a standard arts build that relies on your noble phantasm spamming, level up Sovereign of Magical Staff first, followed by Charisma, and then King's Return. If you want to go for the crit star route, then go with King's Return first, followed by Sovereign of Magical Staff, and then Charisma last. While his skills are very support oriented, Caster Gil's Noble Phantasm is actually partially offensive. It deals AoE damage to all enemies and also lowers their defense while raising the defense of your party. Despite Gil's low attack, because his Noble Phantasm is arts, it benefits tremendously from his Charisma and his arts buff, so it can still hit pretty hard for an AoE Noble Phantasm from a caster. It also benefits from his star generating buff because it has 10 hits, so it will generate a good amount of crit stars. So all of Gil's skills synergize with each other and with his Noble Phantasm, and that about sums up Gil Caster. He is all about synergy. All of his skills and even his Noble Phantasm provide buffs to the whole team, which means he has almost near unmatched utility. Adding Caster Gil to just about any arts team is going to make it dramatically better. Between the defense debuff on his Noble Phantasm and his 2 team-wide damage buffs, your team can easily be doing 70% more damage just from Caster Gil's buffs alone. His star generating buff makes him one of the best star generators around for an arts team, and even on stall teams, his Sovereign of Magical Staff skill is going to enable the team to spam their Noble Phantasms a lot more consistently while also landing stuns and debuffs a lot more often. His skills even make up for some of his own flaws. As mentioned, his double buffs do help balance out his low attack, and his arts buff makes his Noble Phantasm gain much better. He even makes for an okay farmer because of the higher than average damage on his Noble Phantasm. But keep in mind that he does lack a Noble Phantasm charge skill, so he's still behind servants like Nursery Rhyme, Helena, or Nitocris when it comes to farming. If Caster Gil sounds like the 4-star version of Waver or Chamamo to you, that isn't too far off. He does fit into pretty much any arts team and makes it better. However, he does have 2 major critical flaws that stop him from being god tier. For one thing, he has no survival options. Aside from a small defensive buff on his Noble Phantasm, Caster Gil has no protection and he will die very quickly because of it. He cannot guard himself from enemy Noble Phantasms or crits and is just a sitting duck, so he does require a lot of babysitting, which wouldn't be so bad if he could provide consistent quality buffs. But that bleeds into his second major issue, which is that his cooldowns are really long. King's Return has a huge 7-turn cooldown at max rank, and while his arts buff has a more manageable 6-turn cooldown, that still means that you won't have it active for half the battle. Aside from Charisma, Caster Gil struggles with keeping his buffs active, which translates into a servant who can provide some really great buffs immediately, but then has to spend 3 to 4 turns as a sitting duck to recharge the cooldowns on his skills, and not providing much utility. The cooldowns on his skills are also staggered, so that also contributes to it a bit, and this causes him to struggle greatly in longer battles. Luckily, Caster Gil is a team player. He won't do much for you in a buster or quick team, but you can't go wrong with pairing him with just about any arts servant. But I do want to focus in on 3 particular groups: offensive arts teams, crit arts teams, and defensive or stall teams. For offensive arts teams, Caster Gil particularly pairs well with Archer Arturia, Mordred Rider, and Uralie. Mordred and Arturia are in the same boat in that they have high Noble Phantasm spam potential, so Gil's arts buff combined with their own will allow them to Noble Phantasm back to back very easily, while his Charisma buff will also buff their all-around damage considerably. Uralie doesn't Noble Phantasm as much, but she does depend a lot on her debuffs and her Noble Phantasm damage. Gil's arts buff and charisma and defense down on his Noble Phantasm is going to allow Ureli to deal devastating damage with her Noble Phantasm, while his debuff success rate buff is going to ensure that she lands her charms even against high debuff resist targets. And if you're going to build a crit team, servants like Nursery Rhyme, Saber Lancelot, and Emiya Assassin are going to be the standouts. King's Return and a star generating craft essence on Gil will make him a very good crit star engine for servants like Nursery Rhyme and Saber Lancelot if you don't want to solely rely on a long cooldown skill for stars. Then Emiya Assassin makes a great partner too, because his star generating is already pretty good and is just bolstered to ludicrous levels when paired with King's Return. And finally, a stall team provides great defense for caster Gil. Tamamo and Jean are no-brainers here. Both of them are going to protect a defenseless Caster Gil, and Caster Gil is going to be able to help out Jean land her debuffs for more consistency and benefit from the massive cooldown reduction that Tamamo provides. Gil's Bondcraft Essence is Tablet of Destinies, which boosts allied Noble Phantasm damage by 20%. This is a phenomenal craft essence that is worth using for the buff alone, because it's going to stack with your Charisma and Arts buff to further empower your team's damage. Other than that, you're going to want to focus either on improving Gil's Noble Phantasm gain or his star generating. For offensive or defensive teams, you're going to want to go with Noble Phantasm generating craft essences. Some good examples include Magical Girl of Sapphire, Divine Banquet, or Faithful Companions. If you're building a crit team, then star generating craft essences are a priority, stuff like 2030, Kitchen Patissiere, or Fox Knight's Dream. And for a bit of future proofing, Seaside Luxury is really good for even more star generating in the future. Overall, I wouldn't hesitate to call Caster Gil the best art support among the 4-star servants. Caster Gil just does it all and does it well. He provides tremendous damage buffs to your whole team, he drastically improves their consistency of star generating, he enables your team to Noble Phantasm spam more easily, he makes it easier for you to land all your stuns, charms, and negative status effects, and he can deal damage and mob clear when he needs to. His utility is just unmatched at his rarity. However, he does have problems staying alive, being a defenseless target most of the time, and he struggles with long cooldowns, all on different timers, which hampers his potential in longer battles where you can really feel his ineffectiveness while waiting for his staggered cooldowns to reset. So overall, he gets an A- for me. I was really close to giving him an A, but in my opinion, the lack of survival options really hurts him since it forces your support to rely on another support. But even so, he's still top tier and one of the best supports in the game. And those are my thoughts on Caster Gil. Sorry for being a bit late with this one, but I was celebrating my birthday all weekend and I can't record with a hangover. So big thanks to everyone who showed up for the birthday stream, by the way. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.